Hello and welcome back to the van build. I know it's been a while since I posted one of these things. I've been really working hard to get through this footage. I ended up having over 2 terabytes of footage from this whole project, so it's an absolute beast getting through it all. This episode is going to look a little bit different than my usual one because it was actually filmed the day before I had to drive to Vermont for US Open. So I was frantically rushing to get the van road ready, so I ended up neglecting to film a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm just going to do my best to piece it together with voiceover and storytelling, try to make something out of it. So thanks for being here and checking these out, and we'll get right into it. Getting right into it, I created the structure for the ceiling by using 4-inch strips of Baltic birch and then using riv nuts to anchor them into the van. I learned this little impression technique from Far Out Ride's website. It's super helpful for getting all of your riv nuts to line up perfectly with the holes. Since my Baltic birch strips were only 8 feet long and the van has about 11 feet of cargo space, you have to make a few connections. For the connection, I just used another piece of Baltic birch and then just put regular screws into it to secure the joint. Getting all of the ceiling supports done felt like a major accomplishment, so I just had to take a step back for a second. The next morning, I began a task that I knew would not be easy. The goal here is to create a piece of trim that hides the factory headliner edges, but also serves as a structural member for the ceiling. The key here is to take your time, make a cardboard template, and just be patient with the whole process. I think in total, start to finish, this entire piece took me about half the day, maybe like 6 hours. And I've actually made a few of these before, so I knew what I was getting into, and it still took that long. Pretty crazy. After using my template to create the headliner cover, I made a right angle bracket to basically let the ceiling anchor into it. Ultimately, the glue would create the connection here, but the nails just held it in place while the glue dried. And then, of course, fighting it up into the ceiling was no easy task. There you have it, the most complicated piece of woodwork in the whole van, I think. Now that it's done and ready to go, I covered it in a layer of marathon tweed to match the rest of the van's future look. This next part of the van build, I think, was actually the most frustrating thing that I've ever done in my entire life. I basically was going for an adventure wagon style L-track system to support the bed frame, the cabinets, and everything. And yeah, it was a nightmare. If you care for your mental health at all, just buy an adventure wagon kit. To quickly name a few things that went wrong, because I covered the whole van in lizard skin, all my riv nuts kept slipping and spinning out, and then you'd have to pound them out. Another thing that went wrong is once I put the L-track on, my bolts hit the riv nuts and then caused them to spin out again. So the solution was eventually to create a wooden spacer underneath the L-track, and yeah, that solved all my problems. But again, just buy an adventure wagon kit. If you can't buy an adventure wagon kit, I recommend checking out Explorist Life's video on their L-track install, and yeah, they explain it a whole lot better than I ever could. At this point, it was the next morning, and I actually had stayed up until about 2 a.m. the previous night to finish all my L-track, and then I actually was able to create my wall panels as well. To say the least, it was a hectic night. I wish I could have shown you all of the creation of the wall panels, but with US Open looming, I didn't want to be late for my trip, so I just grinded some stuff out and got stuff done. I feel like I'm really making van building look miserable in this video. Yeah, all I can say is if you are going to build a van, be patient and give yourself enough time so that you don't have to rush and do 16-hour work days and work till 3 in the morning on stuff. Yeah, back to the video. The fabric I use for my wall panels is something I've used many times before. It's called Marathon Tweed from perfectfit.com. It's super tough, super cleanable, it looks good, and it creates kind of a warm, cozy feeling in the van that you just don't get from wood panels. For the installation, I used DAP Weldwood headliner adhesive. This is also a super important step to make sure that you get right. Do not use 3M90. 3M90 doesn't hold up to the heat that your vehicle will see in the summertime, and it will all fall off, guaranteed. If you want to use 3M, they do make a headliner adhesive. It's sold at most automotive stores, but it's pretty expensive, which is why I went with the DAP Weldwood, because you can buy it in bulk and spray it out of an air compressor sprayer. Upholstering panels is actually one of my favorite parts of the van build. It's so satisfying to see the panel come out good at the end, and then it just really feels like you're getting something done. For the panels that are just above the wheel well, I decided not to use the fabric and actually went with some leftover coin flooring, and it just made it a lot tougher and more durable down where all the bikes are going to be thrashing around. Yeah, pretty stoked with my decision there. Literally just firing off random activities, trying to get this thing wrapped up as much as possible before having to leave. Yeah, we're gonna take on some insulation now. The process for installing 3M Thinsulate into the ceiling consists of taking a measurement, walking back to the table, making a cut, and then going back to the van to stuff it in, and then repeating that all the way until it's done. With some layouts, you have to spray glue the stuff into the ceiling, but with the way I decided to run my ceiling supports, I was able to just tuck it in, and that was good enough for me. This did not take too long, and wow, what a difference it made, parked right in the sun. I think it just kept the van like a much more controlled temperature and seemed to resist the sunlight heating it up way better. For the walls, I did end up having to spray glue them in, which is fine because I had all my spray glue ready from the wall panel upholstery. The next thing I began working on was the trim for my little slider windows. I made this trim using the template from the window and a bunch of leftover Baltic birch glued together, and it honestly took a lot longer than I thought it ever would. The thickness required to reach from the outer wall of the van to the inner wall ended up taking about 2.5 3/4 inch sheets of Baltic birch. So I had to make a ton of these things, glue and cut them together in every possible way, but the end result was well worth it. I know there is a company that produces these from the Explorers Life videos, but I think the overall cost was around $1,000 for pre-cut window trim, and that's just something I couldn't possibly do, so I made them myself. The next thing I had to do to get this van road ready was install the 12-volt fuse box so that I had something to wire my lights to. In every other van build I've done, I put the 12-volt fuse box in my electrical box, which ended up being a problem if you ever wanted to take the electrical box out. So this one, I put it right in the wall. Yesterday I got this lower panel installed, got this fuse box installed and all wired up. Not super clean yet, but I actually think I'm going to widen that hole up and find like a nice plastic cover for it. Projects for when I get back from US Open. Got this wall panel installed. Got the galley in place. It's mounted. The galley's mounted with these nice L brackets that I found. It's super secure, mounted into the L track. The next step is to install the wall panels and then make the ceiling. We're getting there. The next thing on the agenda was to mark and cut out where the window holes are. The key to this is getting a nice rough cut, screwing your wall panel into the trim ring, and then using a router to clean it all up. Then repeat the exact same thing on the other side. You just pull and get away.
Yeah, there you go, see.
Upholstering these trim rings wasn't easy, but definitely worth it in the end. I think the key to this is just having an abundant amount of patience. Final product looks so good. This also brings me to the part where I stopped filming. So what I did next was install the L-track for the upper cabinets, and then I wrapped up a bunch of the electrical and pre-wiring for my lights, installed the ceiling, like the list goes on. It was literally just too chaotic to film. So yeah, I did manage to record what you're about to see though, so enjoy. Alright, we're gonna put a fuse in and see if the lights work. If they don't, I'll be surprised. Alright, moment of truth. Oh, I forgot to plug the jackery in. Plugging the jackery in, turn the DC on, see if we have light. Yay! Oh, we got light, and we got a dimmer. Oh, that's such a relief. I wasn't sure if it was gonna work or not, but we got it. After 2 weeks of building and one final 14-hour workday, it was now 10 p.m. at night, and it was time to start packing for an 11-hour drive the next day. Well, that's all we have for this episode. Yeah, not my usual episode, but super stoked with what we were able to get done, the progress. So yeah, thank you for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe if you want to see more of these things. In the next one, we're going to do a Dometic 12-volt air conditioning install, which is going to be really fun because I've never installed one of those before or had one in any of my vans. So that's super exciting stuff, and yeah, looking forward to it. So yeah, thanks again for watching. We'll see you on the next one.